Okay, give yourself some. I'm going to tell you why. Because on days like today, it's so easy to stay home. And we're maturing to the point that we don't stay home when we could stay home. And so we thank God for that. And that time being spent, so many of you going through so many things, and God touched my heart. We were doing a series on rebooting a hard drive, but I'm not going to do that this morning. I want to do something a little different to try to encourage us. We're just going through so many things. All of us are going through so many things, and it just seems like you get over one hurdle and something else comes up. So we want to talk for just a little while. Time is well spent. So I'm going to try to finish this up in about 15 minutes. Is that all right? Somebody said, take your time. Right, let us be standing. Let us be standing, those of you that can. Matthew 24 through verse 20, the New Living Translation says, and pray that your flight will not be in winter or on the Sabbath. Look at your neighbor and say, neighbor, oh neighbor, being a real Christian, ain't easy. Do I have a witness? Do I have a witness? Jesus here is talking about the future events. And he talks about all the things that are going to happen. And he says, he understood that cold days mixed with holy days mess folk up. Cold days mixed with holy days. He says, so when your problems come, when life gets difficult, pray that your flight, pray that whatever you're running from doesn't hit you at wintertime, on the Sabbath day, or on the holy day. Isn't it funny that sometimes it seems like everything hits us right at winter, right at the holidays? If it doesn't hit us at the holidays, it hits us at the holy days. And so what we need to understand is times like these and days like these when it's cold outside, it's dreary, and sometimes it's cold inside. You get information that you really just don't want to hear, and it just doesn't sound good. It doesn't make you feel good. But that kind of stuff separates the contenders from the pretenders. All right. And that's why I said give yourself a hand this morning, because I remember the times at Franklin Street, it might have just been the elders and the deacons. But you all are growing and you all are maturing, and I thank God for that. Now, here's what I want you to do. Here's what I want you to understand. When you go through junk stuff and things, it always hits you at the worst time. When does your air conditioner go out? In the summer. When does your heater go out? When does, you're going along well and you think you're doing fine and sickness or bills hit you at the worst time. But I want you to understand something about that. That's how Satan works. I want to look at two things. I want to look at two things that we need to deal with. I want you to understand Paul, there was no greater Christian than Paul. And I want you to understand there are two things that are going to happen to your life. You're going to have to deal with some stuff in your life. Number one, you're going to have to deal with the external stuff. You're going to have to deal with some external stuff. Some stuff that it just comes along. Paul said, I have traveled on many journeys. I have faced danger from river and robbers. Sometimes the tide gets high. Sometimes the waves get deep. And then not only that, you got to deal with the robbers. And the robbers ain't always at the bank. Sometimes the robbers at the gas station. When you only got $2 and gas is costing $4 a gallon. Sometimes the robbers are bills that come up that you don't expect. You have to deal with the floods and the rivers of life and the robbers of life. He said, I've faced danger from my own people. Anybody been there? Can't even trust your own folk. Very folk you think you ought to be able to trust are the very folk. Said the Jews as well as the Gentiles. The church folk as well as the folk outside. Anybody ever been there? Can't trust the folk in the church. Can't trust the folk church out of the folk. Out of the church, right? You got time. I have faced dangers in the cities. in the deserts, and on the seas. Sometimes it does not matter where you go. And that's why I tell folks, I'm going to buy me a new house and move. When you get there, trouble is already, they got a rocking chair waiting for you. Come on in. I've been waiting for you. I'm going to get me a new job. Trouble knows where your new job is. He's already gone there waiting on you. As my granddaddy used to tell my grandmama, they get to talking and they get to fussing. He said, I tell you what, Mary Stone, I'm going to get me a Yetta woman. But what he doesn't realize, if he get another woman, trouble's going to be. And it didn't say woman, I'm going to get me a Yetta woman. I don't care what you do, trouble knows your address. He said, I've faced danger from men who claim to be believers, but are not. You can go to church and folk can sing hallelujah, they can shout, they can praise God, and then cuss you out with the same. Anybody experienced that with me? And all you can do is look at it and say, oh, how I love Jesus. Paul said, I've worked hard, long, enduring many sleepless nights. I've been hungry and thirsty and have often gone without food. Now here's what I want you to look at. Paul said, I've shivered in the cold without enough clothing to keep me warm. Then besides all this, I have the daily burden of my concern for how many of the churches? See, when we're in this thing together, that's why it's tough to be a leader. That's why it's tough to be in leadership, because you have the burden of not only caring for folk, but you have to make the sacrifices. And it seems like Paul said, I work so I wouldn't be a burden on anybody, and yet the more I give you, the more you rob me. The external stuff. You have to make all these sacrifices. Paul said, I have shivered in the cold. I've given so much to the Lord's folk that I don't even have enough stuff for myself. And then folk have the audacity to say, well, Paul, you did all that, but we don't care. We ain't getting you dime. That's the bishop said that's what they do. You have to deal with the external stuff. But not only do you have to deal with the external stuff, you have to deal with the internal stuff. There's stuff going on around you on the outside that messes with you. And then there's stuff that goes on the inside. Yeah. I may be looking fat and healthy today, but I can go to my doctor tomorrow and he tells me I am terminally. So Paul said, I got to go back. He said, I've shivered in the cold. And then Jesus said, pray that it won't be winter. Now, y'all, don't look at me funny, because I want you to understand. When I use this word, I'm not trying to be sacrilegious. But the word I'm going to use also has the meaning of torment. All right? Have y'all ever used that expression? It'll be a cold day in. Huh? I stopped by to tell you, all of us have some cold days in, because all of us have some days when life seems cold and we are in torment. Sometimes those cold days come around more often than we want them to. But watch what he says. Paul says, even though I've received wonderful revelations from God, but to keep me from getting puffed up, I was given a thorn in my flesh. A messenger to keep me from being proud. Sometimes when God builds us up, he has to give us a little something to remind us who he is. Because we begin to think we is more than what we is. Bishop, go to Matthew 24, because I'm about to land this thing and I didn't have time to put this on the PowerPoint. So Matthew 24, y'all mark your Bibles at Matthew 24, around verses 12 and 13. If that ain't it, it's close to there somewhere. Matthew, I think that's where I want you to be. So he said, I was giving a thorn in the flesh. Paul said, I was given a sickness. Now, we don't know what the sickness was, but Paul said, I was given a sickness. And it seems like every time I talk to one of the members lately, one of you are going through some sickness. There's a reason for that. You're doing what God wants you to do. You're doing what God wants you to do. And Satan is never satisfied. I remember Mama has passed on now, but Mama would call me and sometime call me and say, how everything going, baby? And I said, good. She said, well, you ain't doing something right. When you are living for God, Satan is going to mess with your house. He's going to mess with your heart. He's going to mess with every part of your being. But I stop by to tell you, it's a messenger to torment. It's a messenger from, and the King James says, a messenger from who? Satan. To let you know I ain't that far behind you, boy. When you're running track, and you know you're good. When I was a lot leaner and could run track, now the track is running me. But when I could run track, at football practice we would have to do sprints. And what we would do is we would run sprints. And what I would do is when we run those 100-yard sprints, what I would do is I would stand. About 50 yards, I was close. But I'd just be close enough to the guy in the front to let him know I'm here. And in a few minutes, I'm going to run right by you. But that's what Satan does. But we need to understand that Satan is not that fast. Satan is there to remind us he's there. But with Jesus, we're running for Jesus. And somebody said, I've been running for Jesus for a long time, and I'm not tired. So you may huff and you may puff, but you will never blow my house. So he said, keep me from being proud. Watch what happens. 3 times I begged the Lord to take it away. How many of us have been sick and tired of being sick and tired? How many of us have been broke and been tired of being broke? How many of us have gone from one problem to another and you begged the Lord 3 times? Now, he said 3 times. I said, Lord, I could be a better preacher for you. I could be a better Christian for you if you would just take this sickness away from me. Anybody ever felt that way? And now, if it's not you, sometimes it's your children. Sometimes it's somebody close to you. But it's only because Satan is doing his job. And I stop by to tell you, it ain't easy to be a real Christian. Now, anybody can fake it and shake it. But it ain't easy being a real Christian. Then he says, each time he said, my grace is all you need. The King James says, my grace is sufficient for you. In other words, Jesus, I am in pain. Just yesterday, yesterday, baby, or Friday. I just got a call Friday. You know, you shouldn't have favorites, but my favorite first cousin, I got a call that she passed away. Gilda was, I don't care what anybody say, Gilda was my girl. Me and Gilda hung in. And we get into stuff, and folk would and Gilda and I would tell them, stay out, this is between us. Me and y'all ain't got nothing to do with this, because we understand each other. Don't you know that broke my heart? I knew she had been sick, but didn't know she was sick enough. Then not only is she sick and died and has passed, but I get word that her twin is in the hospital. Don't tell me life can't throw you some curves. Just because we're up today financially, just because we're up feeling well, it does not mean that Satan is still not on our trail doing everything he can to bring us down. That's why it's important that you know that there's more to life than just this life. I got news for you. You're not going to get out of this life alive. You ain't gonna get out of this life with no money. Eric, folks talking about, I got, this is mine. Ain't nothing you got yours. Die and see where it belongs to. So you got to focus. You know, I'm at a point in my life. I'm at a point in my life that really, to be honest with you, I'm prepared for death. Because at 60, I know I got more years behind me. So I looked at some papers the other day and I said, if I die tomorrow, this pain don't need to go to work, so I need to up this. See, I'm prepared. I'm looking at my life and say, if I die tomorrow, I know I'm going to be taken care of because of the God I serve. I'm not worried about death anymore. But what pain you say that now? No, I sit down and I think about death. Some of us don't think about death. I sit down and I think about death. I don't quit living because I'm going to die. But the reality is, I said, if I died right now, I can say that God has been good to me. There is nothing in this life I have ever wanted that God didn't give me what I wanted or something better. So what else? So I'm not worried about dying. But I am worried about dying and leaving those. Is God going to take care of them? Yes. Sister Payne has been a good wife. I don't want her having to worry about, she ain't worried. How long has it been since she worked? No, I'm just. Every day she's still working. But deliver me from men, you've had a good wife. I ain't gonna leave her nothing to share with no other man. Have you heard men say that? Hey, if he get it, then she'll get it. What you're saying is when she dies, will give me another one. My grace is all you need. My power works best in what? So look at your neighbor and say, get out the way. Get out the way. See, God can't work because we in the way. He said, I can only show you my power when you're weak. So sometimes he has to break us down to our lowest common denominator. So that when he gets us through it, you can look back and say, nobody but Jesus. Nobody but God. If it had not been for the Lord. So now I'm glad to boast about my weaknesses. I'm glad to boast about my weaknesses. I'm glad that I can talk about what I used to be when I was young. Because you know what it is now? What it is now, next son, your pop is a has-been, but he can look back and see where he has been. All right. So now the power of Christ may work what? Through me. When you go through your illness, and folks say, I don't understand how you can be so joyful in spite of the information you just got. When you have peace, you don't go to pieces. Because it's the power of Christ working through me to show somebody else it ain't over till God says it's over. Some of y'all are sitting up here right now. We know what you've been through, but have we not known what you're going through? Looking at you can't tell. You're smiling, looking good. Health-wise, some of you have had situations financially. You come in like your own world. Nobody knows you got, That's how you function in a world, because nothing stays the same. Everything changes. I don't care. You up today, down tomorrow. And down today too. Since I know it's all for Christ's good, I am quite content with my weaknesses. And not only that, when you get weak, folks start to insult you. You gonna serve a God to let you get sick like that? Like you wasn't complaining when he was breaking. When you was fat fine and thought you was foxy. Paul said, I'm content with my weaknesses. I'm content with insults. I'm content with hardships. I'm content with persecutions. And not only that, he adds the word calamities, because calamities covers everything that. I don't know if y'all remember there was a show that used to come on. There was a woman named Calamity Jane. Y'all remember Calamity? Because everywhere Calamity went, it was a mess. You need to name some folk in the church Calamity. But that's another story. He says, for when I am weak, then I am what? So understand, you're not relying, whatever you're going through. I don't care what the doctor told you. I don't tell you if he told you it doesn't look good. It doesn't matter how it looks to him. It's how I look to God. And even if see, sometimes healing, even if it is terminal, just make sure you end up at the right terminal. Because when I get on a plane, I understand I'm going from one terminal, and as long as I end up at the right, trumpet sound within my soul, I ain't got long to stay here. And it doesn't matter how long. You know, I've done funerals for babies. I've done funerals for brother Fox. How old was Brother Fox? 100 and what? And I'm sure whatever it was, they weren't ready to go. It doesn't matter the age, and it doesn't matter how long they live, you still ain't ready for them to go. And deliver me from folks. You lose a child, I heard folks say, yeah, but you got 3 others. Like that matters. And then they got 4 cars, I'm going to let you use one. Let's close this thing. Matthew 24. I think I'm pretty close to 12 through 13. I'm finna land this plane. Now, what does he say? And because iniquity shall abide, he says, we're living in a world that we went back to the original text. Remember, we were at Matthew 24 and 20? Well, this is what he says before that. We're living in a world where stuff is getting worse every day. Huh? Men don't know if they men. Women don't know if they women. Children don't know their children. Thank you, Bishop. Children think they're grown. Iniquity upon corporate greed. You know, good business now is cheating everybody you can. We're living in a world that iniquity is just about. Go ahead. Watch this, don't miss this. What we said, Jesus said, pray that you don't have to flee and win. He says, the love of many has waxed or grown cold. Now, that's all right in the world. But when the love in the church gets cold, we're in trouble. When we get cold-hearted in the church, we sure enough got a problem. He said, the love of many are going to grow cold. What's sad about it is he's talking about folk in the church. Think about the faces you used to see that you don't see no more. Because being a real Christian ain't easy. Go ahead. He that what? You got to be just like that ever ready battle. That little bunny every commercial, he's still going, he's still beating that drum. I like what Bishop said in Sunday school this morning. The beat goes on. He that shall endure what? He didn't say you weren't going to have external stuff going on. He didn't say you weren't going to have internal stuff going on. But you still got to endure. And don't look at like God like he's unfair. There's nothing that has happened in your life that has not happened in somebody else's. Matter of fact, it happened in God's life. Just like, I don't know why he took my son. God gave his son. And I don't want any of my children to die. I admire every one of you that has gone through that, because I look at you and I see a strength that, God forbid that I have to face it, that I should have. Brother Sister Thompson, I love them because of what they've been through. So Scott, I'm not trying to dredge up memories. I'm just telling you, God has sustained you through some horrible stuff, and you still, doesn't mean it doesn't hurt. Yes, it still hurts. Still hurts. I can tell folks, just get over it. If you love somebody, you never get over it. You get through it, but you never get over it. And so if God has sustained us, he said, some tragic stuff is going to happen in our lives. And when I was talking with Daryl the other day, as we got ready to do the services for his brother Keith, I told him, I don't know how folks make it through life without Jesus. I really don't. With all the stuff that happens, even on a good day, I don't know how folk make it through life without Jesus. Go, let me finish this. He said, if you endure to the end, the who shall be saved? The same. Ask your neighbor, are you the same? So what I want you to understand is, no matter what goes on in your life, listen to what he said. He that endures to the end, the same. So the same way you love him when things are good, love him the same way you faithful when things are good, be the same faithful I trust. Because I'm not just preaching to you all. We go through stuff every day. We may not mention it, but Sister Payne and I go through stuff with the children, with the grandchildren. But you know what I've learned? I've learned that